We're out here this afternoon on a piece of public land that me and Aaron actually did some deer hunting on this fall. It's springtime, things are switching gears here, and we're starting to get into turkey mode. So we came out here, we're doing a little bit of shed walking as well, but in the meantime, I'm also trying to do a little bit of turkey scouting, see if there's any birds in the area that we could potentially hunt this spring. I wanted to talk to you guys today a little bit about what I look for when I am going into a public piece of property for turkey hunting, and some things to hopefully increase your odds to get in position where there's actually going to be birds in the area and you can hopefully be successful. Like I said, we're out here on this piece of public today. It's got big oak timber. I thought this area would be really good for roosting birds throughout the season. We came in here, and one of the first things I looked for was to see if some birds were scratching around the area. Really not seeing a lot of sign here, but I really think there are going to be some birds roosting in here at some point in the year. There's a lot of hillsides, a lot of transition areas that open up a lot more. This area in particular, though, is kind of a turnoff to me because of it is a previous timber harvest a few years back. We got a lot of just thick, nasty brush coming up, blackberry brush, red raspberries, things like that really impedes a lot of the travel for turkeys, and it makes it really hard to set up. So I typically, even if birds are here, I will not usually hunt it, especially later in the season, just because it is so difficult to call a bird up. There's a lot of obstacles for them to get through between timber blowdowns and then all the undergrowth that's coming up. When I go into a piece of public, the first thing I want to look for is big timber. Big timber usually holds turkey. Those areas are really popular for them in the spring because you got the big roosting, and then the open understory will allow for turkeys to strut and spend a lot of time in with the hens throughout the season. One of the other things I will look for a lot on a piece of public, besides roosting area, is food. They usually go hand in hand. The birds got to have an area to roost, they got to have somewhere to eat. So corn is usually a dynamite setup. If you can find cut corn on public, bean fields, turkeys will hammer heavy in the spring if there's still pods standing on them. Things like that. You find that balance between big timber and food, you're gonna have a match made in heaven when it comes to turkey hunting. Another area you wanna look for when you're scouting on public land is open grassy areas. Those are very popular strut zones for birds in the spring. This property in particular does not have that, so it is another thing that is really not appealing to me to want to hunt it in the spring. Those areas are very popular for strut zones. Like I said, those birds will come off the roost within a half hour to an hour. They'll usually be in those areas with hens. They'll usually come back later in the afternoon as well. So if you can get into those spots mid-morning or early in the morning and just wait them out, usually birds will show up at some point. CRP fields is also another popular place that birds will hang out in the spring. I think it's one of them that's actually overlooked quite a bit. We do a lot of turkey hunting in these CRP and grassy areas because if people think that if there's not enough roosting trees in them, the birds don't hang out in them. That's not true. A lot of times, if they're not roosting on that public CRP ground, they'll be roosting somewhere else, and they'll come out there and they'll spend daytime there doing a lot of strutting. So those are a few things to look at when you're trying to find a piece of property. I would highly recommend too, if you got a digital mapping system like Base Map, that's what we use, go on there. You can find tons and tons of public land access throughout the country. Wisconsin, here we have tons of public land. We got tons of private land that's open to public. There's a lot of opportunities out there to get access to public land for turkey hunting in the spring. Another thing I wanted to touch on when public land turkey hunting is your setups, because it does vary a little bit compared to when hunting private land. These birds are usually called to a lot more in the spring. They hear just about anything under the sun when it comes to turkey calls. So I really won't do a lot of calling on public land unless I get a bird that is really fired up. and I feel like he is gonna be more responsive to it. My go-to strategy for hunting public land is to locate a bird off the roost, get as close to him as possible, and a lot of times I won't even call. If I think I know where he's gonna head off the roost, I'll sit there and just wait him out. Sometimes I use decoys, sometimes I don't. Usually I'll start with decoys. If they're timid of a decoy setup, I'll completely remove decoys and go solo with nothing at all. Get in position where I think I can cut them off and go from there. If I am gonna use decoys on public land, I'm gonna use them, like I said, in those open areas, whether it's in the timber or if I get on a field edge. If I get on a field edge, I like to set up on an inside corner, I call it, of a field, or a field corner, because a lot of times, if you can call a bird to a corner, they do not skirt your decoys, or they do not hang up. It just more or less forces them to come to the approach, see it, and then they can't skirt you. They're already in range by then. And a lot of times, if they're already within range, they're committed. They'll come in right to the spread. I hope some of these tips help you to be successful this spring. I know I threw a lot of information at you, so if you got any questions, throw them in the comments below. I'll try and answer them as best as I can. We do probably 50% of our hunting in spring on public land, so we do get a pretty good balance, and throughout the years I've gotten a pretty good gauge as to what works on public land and what doesn't. So I'll try and answer those questions as best as possible. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next vlog.